So, hello again. Thanks for the warm welcome. That was nice. It was interesting hearing Dr. Tao talk about project management. I was almost late here because I am working on a project for a Silmar that's about 2 months behind. And if I had better project management, we'd only be about a week behind, I think. But I think the one thing that you may not have mentioned is that you rarely are working on one project at a time, especially if you're working in an organization. So I've got probably like 5 or 6 big projects that I've got on my plate right now, and juggling them all is really a challenge, especially, and that's why you need good project management. So anyway, I have been at CSUMB since 1999, I think. It's a long time. And I've been teaching in the web design program or in charge of the web design program for about 8 years now. But longer than that, I've been teaching the ethics course, and probably most of you will, all of you will eventually have the ethics course. And then this semester, I am teaching both CST 400 and 401. We've got 52 students in the capstone class, the 400 class right now, which is, I think, the largest group we've ever had. So that's pretty exciting. And the good news is that I will no longer be teaching capstone after this year, because it's a killer for everyone. So my background is I've got a BA from Chico State in visual design. When I was a student at Chico, it was Playboy's #1 party school in the country. And they just had their poll came out this week, and thank God there's no CSU school in the list. But I got my master's, my MFA from Cranbrook Academy of Art in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, also in design. As Dr. Town mentioned, one of the biggest clients that I've been working with since I've been at CSUMB is the Spy Museum, International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. How many people have been to the Spy Museum? Okay, about 5 or 6 people. If you're ever in D.C., you should definitely go to it. It's a very cool museum. This was the website that we redesigned for them about 8 years ago, and it has since been replaced by another design, which I am no longer in charge of, thank God. But I'm still doing a lot of print work and work for their educational staff. Pieces like this that go out to teachers in typically middle school and high school, that prepare students for trips to the museum ahead of time, gives them little specific projects to work on, allows them to be a spy or to take on the characteristics of a famous spy in history. Another one, this is on the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, my interests, as Dr. Tao again says, got my speech memorized by now. I'm really into photography, and I like taking pictures of faces, especially faces and type. I'll talk about that in a second. That's about it. This summer, I went on a road trip to the Four Corners area, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. And this is one of the places that we visited called Antelope Canyon. And pretty excited about the photos that I took there. Those of you that know me well know that I have an obsession about chairs. I've been collecting chairs for probably 30 years now. Part of it's because of where I went to grad school, Cranbrook. Cranbrook has probably produced more significant American industrial designers and architects than any other school. And in fact, all three of these chairs that we taught were designed in the 40s and 50s by students who were at Cranbrook. They weren't designed as students. They came after they entered their professional careers. But I want to talk about the first set. You all seen that chair before? Mm-hmm. Anyone know what they're called?
Isn't it a Herman Miller chair?
Actually, those are Knoll chairs.
Oh.
The one on the right is a Herman Miller chair. No. The one on the left is called the tulip chair, or the pedestal chair. It's designed by an architect by the name of Eros Saarinen. You all familiar with the St. Louis Arch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Saarinen was commissioned to do that monument as well. I like this chair for one reason. It really represents good design thinking. It actually was quite revolutionary in that no chair had looked like this prior to the late 40s and early 50s when this was prototyped. What's the obvious difference between this chair and all chairs that preceded it? It has one leg. Good. And Saarinen was actually trying to solve the problem of clutter. When you get a bunch of chairs around a dining table, there's not as much space as there could be. So he was in search of a more efficient form. And that's what he came up with, and it's become probably one of the most famous chairs in the world. It's very Jetsons looking, very kind of modern looking, but even though it's like 60 years old, it still looks like it's a new, fresh design, which is cool. My second obsession is mid-century architecture. These are houses in Palm Springs. But again, these houses look the way they do and were revolutionary when they came about because houses haven't looked like this before. Houses hadn't had floor-to-ceiling glass, hadn't incorporated the outside into the design of the house as much as these houses do. So I'm obsessed with mid-century architecture. My other favorite thing to do when I got the camera in hand is to take pictures of type, especially type on buildings, big surprise. So these are some trips. This was Moscow on the bottom left, and I think that was Scotland, if we're right. So, because I'm in charge of the web design program, I'm in charge of all the web capstones. Show of hands, how many people in here are web emphasis? Okay, about almost a couple dozen, that's great. So we've been trying to raise the bar in the capstones, especially in the web ones. And one of the things that we've been doing the last 2 years is that all of our web capstones now are designed for both desktops, tablets, and mobile phone devices. And they're all built in Drupal, which is a content management system that's open source and the industry standard. Why are we doing that? Because we've been looking at places like Monster.com and all the websites that are are out there for employment, and almost every web job right now is asking for experienced skinning websites using Drupal. So we want to make sure that all of our graduates have those skills. This is a capstone that was was done by a student a year and a half ago. His name is David Book, an older student probably in his 40s who came back to school because he wanted to make sure he graduated before his two kids entered college. He was a self-taught programmer and had some success in designing apps for the car industry, mostly dealers, allowing them to manage their inventory and customer relations and things like that. While he was at CSUMB, he started this thing called BuzzTouch, which he ultimately did his capstone on. And BuzzTouch, you can go there sometime, buzztouch.com, is this very cool service that allows people without any programming skills whatsoever to design apps for either the Apple iOS or Android in about 15 or 20 minutes. You can have an app ready to go and up on either the iTunes store or the Android place. The cool news is that I got a call from David about 2 months ago. This is kind of public knowledge, but this is the public, so I'll share it. He was calling from the top floor of the Transamerica building, where he had just finished meeting with a group of investors who wanted to become part of BuzzTouch. They offered him, well, they told him his company is worth about $7 million. Or this application is worth about $7 million. And they offered him a check for $3 million right then and there. So, can capstones lead to success? I think so. This software is being used by over 150,000 people throughout the world. This is the application, or the Google map that shows where it's being used. The last 500 places it's been downloaded.